Imagine this. You wake up in the morning knowing exactly what you need to do, the tasks, the habits, the choices that would make your life better. Yet, as the hours pass, you find yourself drifting away from them. The clarity you had in your mind fades into resistance, distraction, and self-sabotage. Why does this happen? Why do we, as human beings, often fail to act on what we already know is right for us? Today we'll explore one of the deepest truths Carl Jung ever revealed, a warning about the forces within us that quietly shape our behavior, even when we believe we're in control. This message is not just psychology, it's a mirror that reflects the hidden dimensions of our own mind. And by the end of this video, you will see why your greatest battle is not with the world outside, but with the unseen world within you. Stay until the end, because the final revelation is the most important one, the one that can change how you see yourself forever. Before we begin, take a moment to subscribe to the channel, leave a like and share this video with someone who might need to hear this message. Comment below what you think stops you from doing what you know you should, because today we'll go deep into that mystery together. Let's begin with a simple truth. Knowledge alone doesn't transform us. If it did, we would all be enlightened, healthy, and disciplined. The problem isn't ignorance, it's fragmentation. Jung warned that the human mind is not a unified force, it's a battlefield of conscious intentions and unconscious drives. The part of you that knows is not the same as the part that acts. Think about it. How often have you promised yourself that you'd change something only to fall back into the same old behavior? You might even feel ashamed, thinking it's a failure of willpower. But Jung would say it's something deeper. It's the unconscious taking the wheel when the conscious mind is asleep. We live under the illusion that we are rational beings. We think our choices come from logic and reason. But the truth, Jung said, is that most of our actions are governed by the unseen, by complexes, emotions, repressed memories, and instincts buried beneath awareness. You may know what you should do, but that knowledge belongs to your conscious mind, the thin surface of your psyche. Beneath it lies a vast ocean that moves you in directions you can't fully control. When you delay what you should do, it isn't always laziness. It's often fear that comes from the parts of yourself you haven't faced yet. Jung called this the shadow, the repressed side of your personality, containing everything you deny, reject, or refuse to acknowledge. And here's the paradox. The more you try to ignore it, the more power it gains over you. So the question isn't, why don't I do what I know I should? The question is, what part of me doesn't want to do it, and why? Until you look at that part directly, it will keep running the show from the dark. Many of us think of self-improvement as a process of adding things, new habits, new goals, new affirmations. But Jung taught that real transformation begins with subtraction, the uncovering of what has been hidden. He once said, "People will do anything, no matter how absurd, to avoid facing their own souls." And that's the heart of our struggle. We read, we plan, we analyze, but when it's time to act, the unconscious whispers, "Not yet." Ask yourself, what are you avoiding? What emotion rises when you imagine truly doing what you know you must? Maybe it's fear of failure. Maybe it's fear of success, of change, or of losing who you've been. Jung would tell you that behind every resistance lies a truth you have not yet accepted. To understand why we don't act, we must see the inner conflict clearly. The ego, which believes it's in control, and the unconscious, which truly is. The ego says, "I'll start tomorrow." The unconscious replies, "You're not ready." The journey of consciousness is about bridging that gap, uniting the knowing and the doing, the light and the shadow. But how do we begin that process? How do we reclaim our power from what we cannot see? Jung offered a path, one that requires honesty, courage, and the willingness to face the darkness within. And that's what we'll uncover next. Because in the next part, we'll explore the hidden mechanisms that make us resist change, even when change is exactly what our soul longs for. Imagine standing at the edge of a cliff. Behind you, the familiar, predictable comfort of your habits. Before you, the vast unknown of transformation. You know that stepping forward means freedom, yet your body freezes. Jung said this moment of hesitation is not weakness. It's the psyche protecting itself from what it perceives as danger. Change always feels like death to the ego, because to evolve, something old in you must die. This is why we resist doing what we know we should. It isn't that we don't want to grow, It's that our psyche fights to preserve the current version of who we are. The human mind clings to stability, even when that stability causes suffering. Jung warned that there is no coming to consciousness without pain. Every act of awareness burns away an illusion, and the ego trembles at that fire. Think about the last time you tried to change a deep habit. Maybe you wanted to become more disciplined, to speak up, or to finally let go of a toxic relationship. At first you felt clarity and motivation, but soon discomfort arose. Anxiety, confusion, excuses. That discomfort wasn't failure, it was your unconscious surfacing, testing your commitment to transformation. The moment you decide to grow, your shadow awakens. It whispers all the reasons why you should stay the same. Jung believed that our psyche operates like a system seeking equilibrium. When you push yourself in one direction, the unconscious pushes back. It's not sabotage, it's a call for balance. You can't force change through willpower alone. You must integrate the parts of yourself that fear it. Otherwise, the more you push, the stronger the resistance becomes. Here lies one of Jung's most profound insights. We do not overcome the shadow by fighting it, but by understanding it. When you confront your inner resistance with curiosity instead of judgment, you begin to dissolve its power. Ask yourself, what is this fear trying to protect me from? What story is my mind still holding on to? Every procrastination, every avoidance, every act of self-sabotage is a message. The unconscious speaks through symptoms, through delay, through emotional resistance. The key is to listen. For example, when you avoid pursuing a dream, maybe it's not laziness and maybe it's an old belief whispering, "You're not worthy." When you delay taking care of your health, perhaps it's not ignorance. Perhaps it's the unhealed part of you that learned long ago that pain equals attention. The moment you begin to ask these questions, something changes. Awareness breaks the automatic pattern. Jung compared this process to turning on a light in a dark room. You don't have to fight the darkness. You simply make it visible. But this visibility requires honesty, radical honesty. You must be willing to see yourself as you are, not as you wish to be. And yet that's precisely where most people stop. They touch the edge of awareness, feel the discomfort, and retreat. But Jung would remind us that one does not become enlightened by imagining figures of light, but by making the darkness conscious. You can't skip the descent into your own depths. It's there, in the confrontation with your fears and contradictions, that your true power is forged. Consider how society often teaches the opposite, that self-improvement means positive thinking, motivation, and endless optimism. But Jung saw that approach as incomplete. He understood that without acknowledging our darkness, positivity becomes denial. True growth doesn't come from suppressing what we dislike in ourselves. It comes from understanding why it exists. So ask yourself, what do you avoid feeling? Is it shame, guilt, fear of inadequacy? Whatever emotion you resist most is likely the doorway to your next evolution. The paradox is that facing it doesn't weaken you, it liberates you. Because in bringing awareness to your shadow, you reclaim the energy it once used to control you. This is why so many people know what they should do, yet remain trapped. They try to build new habits without healing the wounds that created the old ones. They try to move forward without turning around to face what's chasing them. The unconscious doesn't disappear because you ignore it. It simply becomes your invisible master. Jung's warning was clear. When the shadow is not integrated, it appears in your life as fate. You start attracting the same patterns, the same people, the same challenges, over and over again, until you finally see the lesson. Life itself becomes the mirror of your inner conflict. Imagine if every obstacle you face is not punishment, but communication, the psyche's way of showing you what needs attention. What if your resistance isn't the enemy, but the invitation to awaken? In the next part, we'll go even deeper. We'll explore Jung's idea of individuation, the sacred process of becoming whole. You'll understand how this inner integration transforms not only your actions, but your very perception of life. Because it's not enough to know what you should do. The real transformation happens when the one who knows and the one who resists become the same person. Think of your mind as a house with many rooms. Some are filled with light, where you keep your achievements, your virtues, the parts of yourself you proudly show the world. But there are also locked rooms, dim, neglected spaces, where you've hidden the memories, fears, and desires you didn't know how to handle. Jung called this the unconscious, and his life's work was to help people open those doors, not to be haunted by what hides behind them, but to integrate it and become whole. The process he described was called individuation, the journey toward becoming your true self, not the mask you wear for acceptance, but the being you are when nothing is left to hide. Jung believed that every symptom of inner conflict, anxiety, indecision, resistance, is a signal pointing toward this deeper process. When we fail to act on what we know, it's often because our outer identity isn't yet aligned with our inner truth. The path to integration is not about perfection, it's about wholeness. Jung said, "I would rather be whole than good." At first that sounds strange. Why would someone choose wholeness over goodness? But what he meant is profound. Goodness that denies truth becomes hypocrisy. Wholeness, on the other hand, demands honesty. It asks you to look at both your light and your darkness, and to hold them in the same heart. Let's bring this down to something practical. Suppose you know you should take a leap. Start that project, end that unhealthy relationship, set a boundary. The reason you hesitate is that the action threatens an image of yourself that you've spent years protecting. Maybe you've built your identity around being the reliable one, the selfless one, the calm one, or even the victim. When you try to act differently, that identity feels endangered. The unconscious resists because it senses that a transformation of self is coming. This is where courage enters the story. Jung didn't see courage as the absence of fear, but as the willingness to face it with awareness. Every time you act despite your resistance, you affirm your growing alignment with the deeper self, the part of you that wants truth more than comfort. But the ego doesn't disappear quietly. It clings to control, whispering doubts and rationalizations. It says, "You'll do it when you're ready, or maybe tomorrow." But here's the paradox. You become ready only by doing. The energy of transformation is unlocked through movement, not waiting. Jung described this dynamic beautifully when he said, "You are what you do, not what you say you'll do." Each small act of integrity, each moment you choose awareness over avoidance, weakens the hold of the unconscious and strengthens your center. That center is what Jung called the self, the organizing principle of your psyche, the part of you that's greater than your ego. When you live from that center, knowledge and action begin to merge naturally. You no longer ask, "Why can't I do what I know I should?" Because the knowing and the doing become one expression of the same consciousness. Still, getting there requires patience. Jung's work reminds us that transformation is cyclical. You don't ascend in a straight line. You spiral. You'll revisit old patterns, old fears, but each time at a higher level of awareness. The shadow never disappears. It evolves as you do. Integration is a lifelong dialogue, not a single revelation. And yet, even knowing this, most people turn away from the journey. Why? Because confronting yourself is the hardest work there is. It's easier to distract yourself, to blame others, to chase external solutions. Jung called this the modern disease of projection, the tendency to see in others what we refuse to see in ourselves. We criticize arrogance but secretly crave recognition. We condemn weakness but fear our own vulnerability. And until we withdraw these projections, we remain divided. This is why awareness alone is not enough. It must be coupled with responsibility. It's not enough to understand your patterns intellectually. You must own them emotionally. The moment you take responsibility for your shadow, you stop being its victim. You start becoming its master. Imagine the strength that comes from that realization. Not the strength of control, but of understanding. You begin to see that every emotion, every reaction, every inner conflict is not an enemy but a messenger. Anger becomes a call for boundaries. Fear becomes a signal for growth. Sadness becomes an invitation to reconnect. Each emotion points toward an aspect of yourself that seeks integration. When you approach life this way, even your resistance becomes sacred. You begin to see meaning in the moments when you hesitate, when you fall back, when you repeat mistakes. These are not signs of failure, but opportunities for awareness. As Jung wrote, the privilege of a lifetime is to become who you truly are, and that journey demands that we meet every part of ourselves, even the ones we once disowned. So now the question shifts. Not why do I know and not act, but what part of me still believes I am not ready? Because when you meet that part with compassion, something miraculous happens. It begins to trust you. And when your inner world begins to trust itself, action flows naturally. In the final part, we'll bring all of this together. You'll discover how to apply Jung's warning in daily life, how to transform self-awareness into power and knowledge into movement. The last revelation will show you how to bridge the gap between who you are and who you are meant to become. There's a moment in every person's life when awareness becomes unbearable. You suddenly see your patterns so clearly that you can no longer lie to yourself. You realize that no one is coming to save you, and that every excuse you've built has been a prison of your own design. That's the moment Jung was preparing us for, the awakening that feels like collapse before it becomes rebirth. He called it the confrontation with the self, the stage where you face not only your shadow, but also your potential. You begin to see that the same force that sabotaged you was also protecting you until you were ready to understand. The same resistance that kept you from acting was trying to preserve your fragile identity until your consciousness was strong enough to carry the truth. What once felt like sabotage was, in a strange way, grace disguised as limitation. Here lies Jung's deepest warning. What you refuse to confront will rule you. Whatever you keep unconscious will shape your destiny, not as punishment, but as a law of the psyche. Life has a way of bringing to the surface what you avoid, through circumstances, relationships, and emotions. Every challenge, every repetition, every moment of discomfort is life's attempt to make you conscious. The question is, will you listen? Most people don't. They distract themselves, numb themselves, fill their minds with noise. They keep saying, "I'll start when I feel ready," not realizing that readiness is born only from action. The more you wait, the heavier the weight becomes. Jung understood that the real danger is not in failure, but in unconscious living. He wrote, "People will do anything, no matter how absurd, to avoid facing their own souls." And he was right. We invent 1,000 ways to avoid the simple act of honesty. But honesty is liberation. The moment you stop running, the moment you turn toward your own darkness, something extraordinary happens. The fear begins to dissolve. You realize that the shadow was never your enemy. It was your unacknowledged self, longing to return home. You stop needing to control everything because you begin to trust the intelligence of your inner world. From that place, knowing and doing become one. You no longer have to force discipline or motivation because your actions begin to arise naturally from alignment. You start doing what you should because you finally understand who you are. The conflict between will and resistance softens, replaced by a deeper harmony. Not perfection, but peace. And here is the final revelation Jung left us with, the one I promised from the beginning. You will never be free until you accept that everything you seek is already within you. The wisdom, the strength, the clarity, they are not qualities to be acquired, but truths to be remembered. The reason we know what we should do but still don't do it is because we are still searching outside for permission to become ourselves. The moment you stop seeking approval, validation, or guarantees, you become the authority of your own life. Ask yourself, what would change if you truly trusted your own inner voice? If you acted not from fear, but from authenticity? Jung would tell you that the soul already knows the path. The struggle is that the ego resists listening. But every act of self-awareness brings the two closer. Each time you follow that quiet inner knowing, no matter how small, you participate in your own individuation. You become a conscious creator of your fate. And yes, it will cost you. You'll lose the comfort of blame, the illusion of control, and the identity built on avoidance. But what you gain is worth everything. A life lived awake. Imagine looking back one day and realizing that every delay, every failure, every hesitation was part of your preparation. That even the moments when you didn't do what you knew you should were lessons designed to teach you how to finally align knowledge with being. That is the journey Jung called the process of becoming. It's not a path for the faint of heart. It demands self-confrontation, humility, and courage. But it's also the only path that leads to real freedom, because once you face yourself, nothing outside can truly enslave you again. So perhaps the next time you catch yourself not doing what you know you should, don't respond with guilt or frustration. Instead, pause and ask, what truth am I avoiding right now? Then listen, not with your mind, but with your whole being. The answer will not come as a command, but as a quiet recognition. And when it does, you'll find that action follows naturally, effortlessly, as though you were always meant to move in that direction. Jung's warning, then, is not one of fear, but of awakening. He reminds us that ignorance of the unconscious leads to suffering, but awareness leads to integration. To live consciously is to step into partnership with your own soul. It's to realize that every time you face the parts of yourself you once feared, you become a little more whole, a little more real. And in that wholeness, the great question that started our journey, why do we know what we should do but still don't do it, dissolves, because the one who knows and the one who acts have finally become the same. Thanks for looking.